Remember in Blades of Glory when the ice skaters spinned endlessly and the audience sat there in awe? And then remember the ones that didn't spin so well and they toppled over? Today I'm going to teach you a little bit about the dynamics of pirouettes. I love to dance, and so this topic is so interesting to me. By understanding these concepts, you guys can relate it to art in real life. The definition of a pirouette on dictionary.com is the act of spinning while one leg is pulled up and the rest of one's weight is applied on the supporting leg. This is seen in a lot of routines for ballet and ice skating, and is known as one of their trademarks. With a lot of research and practice, I've acquired the knowledge of pirouettes, and now I'm going to share that with you. Two male professors by the names of Sugano and Ungab have given many informational TED Talks and educational blogs where I have received a lot of my information today. They are both physics teachers, and they have had many years of study and involvement. Another source I use is a professional ballerina by the name of Olivia. Olivia has studied ballet all of her life, and she has shared with us some tips, strategies, and techniques, all that she has learned at her academies and in years of practice. There are a lot of steps to a successful pirouette, and the foundations lies between the physics and the physical implications. First, we're going to start with understanding the physics. Physics reveal hidden elements. Walter Ungab, a physics professor, explains pirouettes are just like a top. When we spin them on the table, they keep going around and around, and friction allows them to do so. All that has to happen is there has to be first a point of access. So a strong point would be the ballerina's one leg, and this allows the rest of the mass to spin around this strong point. We can relate this to a tether ball. When we hit a tether ball, it goes around the pole in this strong amount of access. But in order for this to happen, there has to be an original force. And this original force comes from us hitting the ball or the ballerina pushing off her back leg. As friction keeps her spinning, so does angular velocity. But once she pushes off, there's no more force. So in order for the ballerina to keep spinning, she has to do this with her arms or with her legs by taking them out and around to gain more speed. The changes in these dynamics relate in the arms and the legs, like I just said, and that is how ballerinas can go faster and slower. So by widening their radius and bringing their arms farther out, they're going to go slower than if they bring them in. That would be why in Blades of Glory, they bring their arms up and into their center in order to go faster, just like a tetherball does when it comes closer to its center. It gains speed. David King founded a ballet education, and he explained the physics of a pirouette. In my PowerPoint, I have a diagram of the different forces that are acting on a ballerina and how this increases their speed and how this makes a pirouette harder. Men and women have different characteristics, and because of that, many say it's easier for a male ballerina to turn quicker and more efficiently. These are generalized statements, but the example of this is because their bodies are just like a spinning top. Males usually have wider shoulders and become narrow at the bottom, while women are more curvy, and this makes it harder for them to have the speed and ability to balance on one foot. These concepts are fairly hard to understand, but the physical implications are just as important and a little bit easier. In my PowerPoint, I have diagrams of the step-by-step process ballerinas have to complete in order to make a successful turn. But now I'm going to explain them to you. This information came from Olivia Andrea and all of her studies as she's become a professional ballerina. The first step is preparation. Like for anything we do in our life, we have to prepare before we're ready to perform. We have to have a smooth floor. It's very hard to turn on carpet. One needs their hair tied back. They need proper footwear, and then they need to have their muscles engaged and ready to go. So they can do this by stretching or doing a core workout. The first step, which is the very most important, is the prep. Ballerinas do this by bringing their leg out to the side, which they call tendue. Next, they move it back, then they plie, bend their legs, releve up on their bottom foot, and bring their leg to passe. In passe, a ballerina wants her knee to be perfectly flat so she can balance a water bubble. This allows the physics of staying in line to match up with her physical implications. When she's preparing, she also wants to make sure that her shoulders are back, her hips are straight, they're in line, and her back heel is off the floor. And this will give her more power to push off. When she pushes off in passe, the most important part is remembering to keep her hips tucked under. As she blinks her hip up, she's going to tip over, and she brings it down, she's going to tip the other way. So everything has to be perfectly in line, like a top would on the table. An idea in the example is ballerinas focus on having a rope pull from their head, aligning them to the ceiling, and pulling them up rather than to the side or back and forth, because this will result in them toppling side and side. When they pull in quickly, it allows this force off of the back of the ground to push them around. But then their head and arms come into play. So a spot is necessary for their head to whip around and back forward so they can continue their speed, while their arms do the same thing, and their body is completely engaged and tightened. Now that we know how to releve and turn, we have to connect all the physical implications with our physics. And that allows us to spin just like a top would. Ballerinas and ice skaters can turn using their physics, their physical preparation, and then lots and lots of practice. Once we understand these physics of torque and velocity and where our body needs to be at the right time, we will be able to turn just like the ballerinas. And even though it seems really complicated, all we have to do is stay on top.